Today, we're going to talk about one of the most stressful things I've ever had to do while I was working at YMH. And that was booking and taking care of the logistics of doing a Zoom call with Robert Paul Champagne in the peak of a pandemic. Welcome to another episode of Catching You Up with
Nadav. It's going.
Today's episode is executive produced by Average Ed. Without the help of Average Ed, I would probably go become a carny and travel from city to city saying that I'm a mechanic and, kind of fixing machines when they're broken, but I don't know what the fuck I'm doing when I'm fixing these things. And yeah, people are gonna get hurt. But you know what we do? We just move on to the next city. But because of Average Ed, I don't have to do that much moving. And if you'd like to show big baller support and become the executive producer of the show, click the Patreon link in the description below. Comment, like, subscribe. It all helps with the algorithm. So let me tell you about YMH Live 2. It was the peak of the pandemic. We were planning to do a Zoom call with Robert Paul Champagne. For those of you that don't know who Robert Paul Champagne is, he's someone that at Your Mom's House podcast, we found a video of his on Instagram.
Black guys who love the good. If you're a hot black guy and you want to fuck me at $23.95.
Where he was inviting homeless people from jail. They could live with him for free. Free food, free rent, leasing a key, all that stuff. And we were fascinated by him.
But you gotta fuck me. I need to be fucked a lot, man.
And we just slowly started developing a relationship with him.
We have the opportunity right now.
Stop it, Tom.
Actually,
stop it, Tom.
To the Try It Out guy. Oh my God, please answer.
Hello?
Hey, Robert?
And doing a live call with him during a live YMH seemed like pinnacle stuff to us. My plan was that we were just going to send Potter over to New York with a MacBook, escort Robert into a hotel. We would just have a babysitter that we trust with him. As we realized COVID restrictions, literally we couldn't get to New York. And I was like, I have no idea how to reliably get Robert Paul Champagne on a Zoom call. He had like 6 phone numbers. His Instagram accounts kept on changing. I started learning that every avenue that I could think of to get Josh Potter into New York was not going to work. This was like at the beginning of the pandemic. So everyone was just like, look, dude, these are the rules. Then I realized I knew someone in New York that could possibly help us. This person went to high school with one of my best friends from college. I mean, honestly, I don't even remember really how I set it up to him, but I was like, look, I need a huge solid from you. This is COVID. It's the pandemic. Let me know what the highest end of your day rate is. And we will pay you that for a couple hours of work, but you're going to be hanging out with a weird dude. I need you to escort him to and from his apartment to this nice hotel, set up the Zoom link, make sure that it's all working properly, and just make sure that you're our reliable source in New York while this is happening, because this is all a live show. And I knew he was walking into a minefield, and I was just like, look, man, I'm not gonna lie, this is gonna be weird for you, but just call me afterwards. I want to hear the whole story. And, I want to grace you guys with the story. So we're gonna call up my friend, and we're gonna hear what it was like for him to chaperone Robert Paul Champagne. Please enjoy this discussion with my friend, Dan Kelley. All right, guys, we now have my good friend, Dan Kelley, frontman to rock and roll band Moral Panic. You can find all their info in the description below, but my good friend, Dan Kelley, a.k.a. HDK, a.k.a. Hard Dick Kelley, a.k.a. Dingleberry Dan. Dan, are there any of those that you want me to bleep?
I accept all those, and thank you, sir. May I please have another?
So I wanted to tell everyone about, we had to ensure that we'd be able to do a Zoom call with Robert Paul Champagne, who you had no idea who he was when I called you to ask for this favor. And you were literally the only person I knew in New York that I would trust enough to do this. So I know my version of how I remember it, but, we're calling you, Dan, and I'd like to hear your perspective. So from the beginning, go ahead and just kind of walk me through what this living nightmare was like for you.
I think it was like August or September of 2020. So we were in the height of the pandemic. It was the first kind of summer pandemic, which in New York was definitely a big deal. But you were like, oh, I need you to escort and tech check and set up a camera for this. I think you said colorful individual at the time or something like that. And I was like, all right. And you gave me kind of a low ball figure for what you wanted. I gave you kind of a, swinging for the fences figure, and you took it. And I was like, all right, let's fucking do this.
In my head, I probably gave you the day rate that was greenlit, but I was like, listen, in my head, I'm like, Dan, fucking highball me because we're not in a position to say no to whatever number you say.
Yeah, I didn't look up this person at all. You might not even tell me his name, but I didn't look him up at all. And I was just like, great. This is like an opportunity to get out of my apartment. And I'm sure that this is a really, stable, normal individual that I need to.
I think the way I pitched it to you was like, look, man, it's an easy gig. I just need you to go with the laptop. I'm going to ship you a microphone and everything that you would need. And I need you to go pick up this guy in a nice car that we'll order. You need to pick him up from Spanish Harlem, from the projects. Bring him to, I forget where, maybe it was the Ritz. I forget where we did it, or the Four Seasons.
It's right on Central Park. It's a super, super nice hotel.
Let's take a quick break and say thank you to the sponsor of this episode, Blue Chew. You used to get up like that, and now you're getting older and things are slowing down like this. Turn back the clock and get Blue Chew. Blue Chew is an online service that sends ED medicine straight to your door with the same active ingredients as Viagra, Cialis, and Levitra, but in chewable tablets and at a fraction of the cost. It's a total win all around. Your dick will be harder, and you're saving money. And if you're like me, at every job you've ever had, at the water cooler, you're talking with your boys, and your boys are going, man, Nadav, I used to be so hard all the time, and now I'm only hard some of the times. I say, you know what, boss? Don't worry about that, because Blue Chew's in the game, and they're going to make your dick so hard. And then they come back to me the next day and they go, Nadav, thanks for making my dick hard. Getting started is easy, and everything is done online. Just sign up at BlueChew.com. Consult with one of their licensed medical providers. And once approved, your prescription will be sent to your doorstep within days. Blue Chew wants to help you have better sex. Discover your options at BlueChew.com. Chew it and do it. And they've got a special deal for catching you up with Nadav listeners. Try Blue Chew for free when you use my code Nadav, that's N-A-D-A-V, at checkout, and just pay $5 for shipping. That's BlueChew.com and use promo code Nadav to get your first month for free. Visit BlueChew.com for more details and important safety information. And thank you, Blue Chew, for sponsoring this show. Now let's get back to the episode where this interview will get you extremely hard, but not as hard as Blue Chew. The gig was hang out with him in the hotel until we need him, and as soon as that's done, you can start breaking down, escort him back, and your night's over. And I was like, easy gig, right?
Sure. So, yeah, I mean, gear came. I went to the Mark the night before. We set up. We did a test run. Everything was fine. I was like, you were telling me, oh yeah, we've got the hotel for 2 nights. And I remember thinking like, you ever 2 nights? Like, I'm fucking staying here. This hotel is nice as fuck. I've been stuck in my apartment for way too long. That hotel was so nice and there was nobody in it. It was like completely empty, like The Shining empty. But I loved it. It was great.
You're welcome, Dan.
And yeah, I stayed there. I stayed there overnight. I took advantage of the amenities. The next day, I worked my regular job a little bit from there. And then, the car came, and the car was a immaculate Escalade. The guy was out there with my name. I was like, oh my God, this is unreal. I go sit in the car. From where we were, it was, middle of Central Park. We're going to somewhere in Harlem. You said Spanish Harlem. Sure, I can't remember. It was out there. But I was in the car with the driver for like 45 minutes, and he was this very sweet, older African-American man, like telling me how much he loves his family, and
good.
And we're talking, we're sharing personal stories. It's great. And he's telling me about all the celebrities he's picked up and stuff. And I was like, oh well, I heard this guy is for
tonight
real
will be
character.
no different.
And he was like, oh, I'm sure it's nothing. So we get to Harlem. Robert lives, I don't know if he still lives there, but it was in a housing project. He does. So we go to this housing project, and it's a housing project. We're sitting out there waiting. I call one number. I remember it was not working.
Right, because I gave you 2 or 3 numbers. I'm like, look, he's going to answer one of these 3, but it always
one
changes.
And he came down.
Which one he answers?
Me and the guy were there. We're chilling, waiting. We're talking, talking about church and our family, and everything's so great. And then Robert comes out, and he's like, I don't even know what to say. He was hard to miss.
As you spotted him, were you like,
oh,
I think that's the guy?
I knew it was the guy immediately. I mean, he was either a very undercover cop, or he was like Robert Champagne. And he was like in an ill-fitting kind of tuxedo suit and a really, really fucking bad wig. And he had a bunch of plastic bags, like a couple on each wrist. And he came in the car. And all I had to say is the driver was a lot less friendly. That's just one in the car. And
yeah, the driver was less talkative on the ride back.
It got worse because I think one of the first things that Robert said was, he was like, black people have ruined Harlem.
How far into the ride did he say that?
The driver put his foot on the gas. It started really quickly, and the driver was very professional and just was like, I'm not talking anymore. And then from also like the first 5 seconds, Robert's phone just is beeping, and he's like, it's my manager. I'm not going to try and do a Robert impression, but he kept saying his manager was calling, and he kept saying, like, I've got this impending deal, like I'm going out to California to shoot porn. Which also, I'm just like, what is happening? And he was greasy, and he kept fixing his wig, and he was wearing makeup, and he was just like nonstop talking about nonsense. He was talking about Cher. He was talking about Coney Island. Cher's his best friend, apparently. And I remember I was going through like shit I had sent him from that day, and he had this like bedazzled necklace, like a necklace that I don't know, for clearly for a woman that would cover like all here. And he was like, Cher bought this for Christina. It's like Cher gave me this to give to her. And I was like, okay, whatever. So, 45 minutes later.
So do you just take it from him and you just hold on to it for the rest of the night?
He's like, you're going to mail this to Tom and Christina, right? Okay. And I'm like, yeah, I sure am.
Good. Right.
So, yeah, we have a long car ride back where I kept seeing the driver like looking at us in the rearview mirror. I honestly think, considering how nice the hotel was and the fact that someone hired a car, that I was someone like he was a male hooker or something, and I was the John. And it only got worse when we got to the hotel. And like I said, yes. Outside dining was a thing again. People were so excited to be able to sit on the sidewalk and excuse me, and like be in a restaurant and get served and, you know, help the service industry. So there were a good amount of people. And I felt like it was the most horrible walk of shame walking through all these people at a really fancy hotel and a fancy hotel restaurant. And I'm there with Robert Champagne. His wig is like sideways and he looks insane. And we walk through and, you know, we go up to the room. I sit him there and I'm like, do you want anything? And he's like, no. Do you want to drink anything? He's like, no. Do you want to watch TV? He's like, no. I think, let's just talk. Like, what? I'm texting you and I know that you were doing a live show. You had your own stresses, but
Right.
I had like 3 hours to kill with him and it was brutal. He just went in circles of things he was talking about. So the first thing he would talk about is he was mad at this club promoter because he had this great karaoke night. And I'm like, oh, that's terrible. And he's like, yeah, I had this great karaoke night. Tons of people would come and, you know, it was great. But me and the promoter were fighting and he won't let me do it. I'm like, so where is it? It's like, oh, it's in Coney Island. And then I finally got him to get the TV on. And for some reason, we're watching something. Just to stop fucking talking. And then Hulk Hogan comes on TV and he's like, yeah, I fucked him. He's like, yeah, we fucked. I you asked for him to elaborate, but I thought like I was just like, nice.
Cool, man.
So again,
That's
I'm trying to like
cool.
soften this evening and just, I'm like, are you sure you don't want something to drink? I went to, you know, I heard that you like champagne. I went and got you champagne. And he was like, okay, yeah, sure, get the champagne. So I bought him like a pretty decent bottle of champagne. Well, I put it in the freezer by accident. And when I went to uncork it, it literally exploded everywhere. And he was not impressed. He was just like, he was like,
he does do
and
that.
I
He
was
does
like,
roll
oh
his
my,
eyes a
Robert, I'm
lot.
so sorry. And he was like, I ended up giving him a bottle from the mini bar of like rum, and he was fine. He was happy as a fucking clam. And I don't know. At that point, we've still got, you know, an hour or so left to kill. And he just talked to me about Cher.
For an hour?
And in that time, the arc of his story, they're best friends, they get in a fight, they're still fighting, and then they become friends again. And you know what? He was like legit nervous. But he got in that car, he got to the hotel, and I could tell that he was super nervous about what he was going to say the whole time. And I can't even remember what he said, really.
If you want to watch it, it was YMH Live 2. They're still renting it out on ymhstudios.com. But I just remembered that, like, just while I was producing this live show, Dan, there was this entire other show that I wanted to watch. It was just the show that involves you entertaining Robert Paul Champagne, who I did tell you all the stuff about. I told you his name and I told you everything about him. Like, you could look up clips about him beforehand just so you have an idea of who he is,
No,
which you chose
it's
not
on
to.
me.
So that
It's
is
on me 100%.
that is your fault.
I totally was like, yeah, whatever. I can get out of my apartment. This is like some good, easy money. And then, I spent the night in this super nice hotel. Like, this is awesome. And then I saw him and I was like, oh, this is real. This is not an act.
At any point, did you think you were in harm's way? And then follow-up question, were you mad at me for placing you there?
I'm going to go backwards on this. I was never mad at you about this at all. Not at all. Not at all.
Okay.
I never felt in harm's way. I definitely, something to keep in mind of when it was. 2020 in September,
Right.
I was definitely not like when I was with that driver, we were fine. We were wearing masks. The windows were down. It was cool. Robert gets in the car and it's like, do you have another mask? He did not exactly make me feel COVID safe at the time. We were in a suite and there was definitely enough room for us to kind of coexist. And I had his little recording set up so he could be in one corner and I could be in another corner. The only thing that was uncomfortable and made me not feel great is he kept going to the bathroom and left the door open every time. Every time.
Yeah, You know what's funny is that you're actually getting the best version of what that could have been. We sent Josh Potter to New York, to Spanish Harlem, to go interview him at his apartment, and he greeted him bottomless. And like the footage is him in just like a black wife beater, and I'm looking underneath, I'm like, are those is that his cock and balls? And I realized he is answering the door to, he doesn't know how many people are there. He knows that it's going to be Josh Potter, who he knows, and then someone else with a camera who he's never met before. So he is answering the door.
Yeah, I mean,
so just so you know, did you
dick.
see his dick that night?
I didn't see his dick. I didn't see his ass. I did not see anything.
That's a dub, dude.
He was a gentleman. Look, it was also weird because he was actually quite nice. And like I said, he was very nervous. But also, every
he
third
is a
topic
sweetheart.
would be like, God, I just got to get to LA to get in the porn business. I'm like, yeah, man, you do.
He was deep into the OnlyFans.
He had an OnlyFans?
Yeah, and I mean, his OnlyFans honestly was the exact same content that he was posting on Instagram, which was just, videos of him coming. Well, videos of him coming and stuff with different hats and sunglasses on.
Yeah, this was a hard lesson learned for me.
What was the lesson you learned?
Do some research.
Ask more questions when Nadav books you.
I do have to say, he really was. He was totally fine. He was sweet. He was the ultimate punisher. I mean, he just did not shut the fuck up. I think at one or two points, I went in the bathroom and just sat on the counter and looked at my phone for 20 minutes because we had 3 hours in there.
Yeah, that was on purpose too. I was not letting any form of traffic get in the way of even cutting close to interfering with this. And Dan, I'll let you know right now that up until that point in my career, that was the most stressed out I'd ever been at YMH Studios was, can we get Robert Paul Champagne on a Zoom call reliably? And you came in the clutch, in the last bit. We were you said yes to everything. You were a trooper about all of it, and I don't think it would have been possible.
I'm glad to be a part of
you.
history.
So
I'm just glad to be a part of history.
I couldn't have done it without you, and I'm so thankful that you picked up my call.
Honestly,
day.
it was Bobby Champagne.
Bobby Champs over here.
I have to tell you. So after we finished, I couldn't get him out. All right, we're going now, and he's yammering away to me about Cher and Coney Island, and
He's like, we just did the show. My heart is racing at 200 beats per minute. We need to calm down together, and we just need to talk, suck and fuck, whatever just comes naturally.
It wasn't like that. It was not like that at all. He was sort of getting it, but he also was like, but let me tell you more about this. And I'm like, oh, here we go. We were up there for 3 hours. There's that busy restaurant, and it's still busy. And then we walk in. And and I'm pushing him out.
And it was the same drive.
Oh my God. That guy was a God-fearing Christian
buddy,
man,
sorry.
And I think that was it's amazing that Robert got home that night. Because that guy was not into it.
Well, Dan, I want to say thank you for for doing that for us. And Dan, if you do stuff outside of chaperoning Robert Paul Champagne, why don't you tell people what do you do?
I'm a
Where can people
fledgling
find
musician. You can come check out my band in New York. We're called Moral Panic. We're really awesome. We're on Instagram and Bandcamp.
Yeah, you could. You'll also have all the information to follow Moral Panic and Dan online in the description below. I would like to say thank you for everyone that you're seeing on screen right now. They are all producers of the show, and they all help make this possible and give it to you on a fairly good and consistent basis. And although we always do our due diligence and research here at Catching You Up with
Nadav, it's COVID.
I would also like to remind everyone that
This is a totally unconfirmed news.